War's over, but I sold you wrong. Still battling the ghost long. Still struggling to see the signs. Too heavy for a heart like mine. Save me, save me. My heritage to keep me clean. Keep the devil watching over me. Save me, save me. Last time before I walk away. Spellbound, I start around.
Hello. Thank you for joining us on the ReachOut Roundtable. Today, our special guest, well, you have so many titles, so I'll let you introduce yourself, but she's the founder of the NMAAS Organization, the National Museum of African American and Stamps, and she's one of the main inspirations for why I started my nonprofit organization as well. And I really can't wait for y'all to learn all about NMAAS. And yeah, so please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am so proud of you. Just letting you know that for stepping out there and putting your voice out into the world. It's a big step to do, and I always want to encourage you and just let you know personally, one-on-one, I'm very proud. 2020 has been a year for everybody to zone, to find an area that they enjoy, even more so, I think, to spend more time with it. But as you said, my name is Charlene Blair. I'm the founder of the National Museum of African Americans on Stamps, also known as NMAAS. And I've been a collector for over 28 years. And I actually started sharing pieces from my collection. I collect Black Heritage stamps, not only the series, but individuals that are on stamps, African Americans, on US stamps is my main focus. And I actually started after reading an article in Jet magazine in 1991. And they were talking about the 14th Black Heritage Stamp Company out. And for some reason, a light bulb just went on that year. I was like, we have stamps, highlighting us as individuals. And so I went to the post office, and I think it was W.E.B. Du Bois that was coming out. And I went to the post office to get it, and I asked for all the other stamps, thinking I can get the other 13. And they said, no, you have to go to stamp dealers and stamp shows to get all the rest of them, but we can give you this one. And I found out that was part of a series that was started in 1978, but there were so many more stamps even before that series started. And so researching and going to stamp shows and stamp dealers and just started my collection. And I was so excited about it. I just started sharing it on Facebook, like, oh, guys, look at this. About 2012, I started that. But then in 2017, I just decided to go ahead and start NMAAS, start the nonprofit as a tool and way to really show my collection, to show it in schools, libraries, at conferences, and just another way to be able to raise some money. Not that all my collection is purchased from my personal funds though, but the NMAAS piece is the nonprofit piece that basically I loan my pieces to be able to show. And so not only this year, 2020 has really been interesting because we're doing a lot of virtual presentations. Black museums had their conference virtually, and we had a booth there. And so what having to be virtual means, because usually with the pop-up exhibits, you could set up, 8 to 10 tables or even one table.
Yeah.
of philatelic items. That's the word for being a stamp collector, a philatelist, philatelic items, which range more than just stamps. We have first day covers, which are envelopes with the stamp on it. We have posters, coasters, postcards, almost anything that you can think of that a stamp can be put on, or some kind of design we have in the collection on different people. There are almost 300 or more U.S. stamps related to African Americans. And so, but virtually, what I've been doing is taking pictures. Let's say Marvin Gaye, taking pictures of all my items related to him, and then turning it into a virtual exhibit by doing a video. And so for the Black Museums Conference, I actually highlighted just music, did African Americans on music, and did the virtual show. And it was really well received. And that one has been circulating even, through my employer. And then people were liking that one.
I love to hear all the detail because I think it's important for people to know, like, if you're passionate about something and you're actually putting the work in, you will get the result. So you just have to be very consistent and, like we're saying, be flexible and adapt to, okay, now we're in a virtual space, but how can I thrive? And I really like that because I know it's very educational. Like you said, you were able to go to
stamps
schools.
teach. That's the code.
Yeah.
Right. Each stamp has its own story,
Yes.
and you can use them to learn, to teach history. And that is one of our, visions and missions, is one, to introduce people to the hobby of stamp collecting, because, in the African American community, that's not something that necessarily we gravitate to.
Right.
But to, one, introduce them to the stamps, to use it as a tool for learning history, to possibly start some young folks to collect, because most, when you think of stamp collectors, you think of older white males. And so we're trying to bring diversity and inclusion to the hobby too. But also the fourth, and something that I'm really getting into, is being a catalyst for the museum industry itself. We need more African Americans in the museum field to tell our story. And so this as a tool and a way for me to tap into that whole museum field, but also, introduce others to stamps, to the hobby itself, and then to the possibility of being a curator. Because doing the pop-up exhibits, you really have to spend a lot of time picking out items, deciding what you're going to put in there, and then, make it in a way that people will find it interesting and still learn.
Yes. Good times. Okay, thank you for sharing. And that's very amazing to hear. So that means you're 5 years old now. Is that correct?
Well, we started in 2017, so we just celebrated 3 years with the nonprofit. Officially with the nonprofit.
Gotcha.
3 years. Yes, in August we did. Yes.
Yes. So that's so great to hear. What would you say, of all of your experiences, would be your favorite part about NMAAS?
I think, once people realize how many stamps there are, and this is just U.S. stamps. You just said Martin Luther King, you have 2. But if you say, around the world, even Malcolm X, around the world, you would have a whole lot more to include in your exhibit or in your collection. That's one of my favorite parts, exposing people to just what's in just U.S. stamps. They're amazed at how many we have for that. And then to branch out more is a nice aspect, but also how more people, because of the virtual environment we're in right now, people can see how it can be shared in an easier fashion. They may not come to the library. Like you said, we've been at the library, Edwardsville Library, like 3 years in a row. And when people first came, they thought we were coming to see a bunch of stamps, flat. But once they got there, they saw it was really like a mini museum. We had a exhibit, a mini museum. And then we had so much more than just stamps. And just to see the look on people's faces and have
Yes.
people leave, saying they're going to go start a collection, or they inherited, their grandfather or their grandma's collection, and they never really looked at it, and it kind of sparked passion for them now to go pull things out to see what they have. So
Hmm.
that's been fun.
Yes,
That's
people
been a
were
fun
so
part.
surprised. And they had so many questions, or they would like end up lingering at a certain table for a while. And it
Yeah.
was just so interesting to, yeah, to do that the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and so,
And this year we weren't able to, well, actually, this year we weren't able, oh, we did go this year in February because everything started shutting down in March. So
yes.
we were able to make it to the library, but there were a couple events in April that we weren't able to attend, or people couldn't come this way because of, the big situation. That you had asked about challenges. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. But one of the challenges, now as a nonprofit, is the curating and coming up with the exhibits is the fun part. But as a nonprofit, we thrive on funds. So
Right.
what I'm learning is how detailed the grants have to be. It's not enough just to put it in a, you have to make a case for what type of programming are you doing? Who is your target audience? How is this helping target audience, or how is it impacting the
Right.
target audience? And is this a sustainable program that you're doing that you deserve these funds? So just learning that aspect of having a nonprofit and having a museum has been a learning experience over these last 3 years. It really has. But I mean, it's worth it to know that you have, and you don't just rely on grants. You're looking for donations, you're
Right.
looking for sponsors, you're looking for all kind of aspects. But nonprofits, a lot of them do thrive on the grant process.
Can I?
So it helps to have a pop-up exhibits where people are coming out and you can say, oh, we had 75 people at this event. And
Right.
especially right now, because even the, brick and mortar, we don't have a physical space right now. But even the brick and mortars are shutting down because they're not getting the visitors they used to have. Some of them relied on schools bringing kids through there, and that hasn't been happening, so they have to shut down. So by us being able to do virtual exhibits or even the pop-up exhibits, we're able to expose a lot of people in one day
Right.
to our museum versus a brick and mortar waiting for somebody to come in there, and that hasn't happened. Even
Hmm.
Wells Fargo had 12 museums, and they're shutting down 11 of them in the next year.
Wow.
And they're only going to keep the one, one in San Francisco. So and then the one young lady, National Doll Museum, African American Dolls, she had to shut down her place. She had a building and she had to move all her dolls back home. So she'll probably pivot at some point, maybe to doing pop up exhibits like we are. So that's just the one advantage that we have had, being able to do
Hmm.
switch from pop up and not have to worry about rent, utilities, and things, and then to be able to make the virtual or like YouTube videos to still show our stuff because we were already doing that,
Yeah.
before kind of COVID happened. So
Yeah.
we got a little ahead of it at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about that, but I did want to ask your advice um, on asking for donations because I'm still becoming comfortable with that. I think, if I want to support an organization, I don't need to be asked, if that makes sense. And so, I mean, it's like Girl Scout cookies.
But it's amazing. You have to ask people, and you can put your cash, you can put your PayPal up. But like I'm a charter member of the of the museum in DC,
Yes.
African American History and Culture, and believe
Yes.
me, I seem like I get to eat every day. And and I'm a charter member. I've made donations,
Right.
but that doesn't stop them from constantly. And I don't have the staff, or time and energy to do that myself. So that's an area that at some point we hope to maybe get a fundraiser person, a marketing person that can help with that type of thing, at least part-time. But even people who sell real estate or people that do some other type of sales, they'll say you contact 100 people, 10 people may respond, I think,
Right.
and one of those
One of
bite.
them say
So
yes.
it's like, how much time and energy are you going to put in it? And you're right. I mean, some of these are rewarding employees who volunteer in the community, who do, and then give that employee some money to donate to the nonprofit. So they're
Okay.
starting to see the philanthropy. And I know for 2020, on the 2020 taxes, there's going to be a section at the top for people who want to donate $300, because if you don't itemize, you don't always get the money you donate. So this year, there's going to be a spot at the top of everybody's tax return that you can donate at least $300 to a nonprofit of your choice. So this is a time for us, especially small nonprofits, to say, hey, remind everybody, you get to make $300 this year. It could be, put on your taxes, and it'll reduce how much you have to pay taxes on, which a lot of people know or aren't paying attention to that.
Yep.
But we may have to push that and remind everybody, if you're considering making a $300 donation, we'd appreciate it if you pass it on. But the thing is, too, keeping the grant process is really something. You got to set aside 30 to 40 hours just to fill out, those grants. So
Oof.
pick the one you want. But this one lady I saw, she said you should be doing 2 grants a month. And I'm like, that's just too much. I think she was kind of pushing her business too, trying to get people to get her to write out the grants for you. But I have heard that if you have your program and have the project you want to do, expect to maybe ask at least 4 people to do, take a donation to it, and don't expect one organization to give you all the money. Let's say you have a project you think is going to cost $10,000. Have your impact statement, how much it's going to cost, and then expect them to maybe give you a couple thousand on that. That's why you have to do it to at least 4 or 5 people.
Okay.
It's not one person's going to fund your whole event.
Yeah.
But grants.gov has a lot of good videos.
I'm sorry, you said
of course you want to make sure
grants.gov?
grants.gov.
Okay.
You want to go and look at the grants, and then you want to register with SAMS, which is the system award. It works with grants.gov to have that in place, and eventually, get your DUNS number too. And that's just a number that you fill out, like grants in Illinois. Well, and that may be also, that's worldwide, having a DUNS number. But that's definitely just kind of shows the strength of your business.
Okay.
Because as a nonprofit and first getting a lot of our stuff is based on our own personal finances and personal background. But eventually, those are the programs to go look for.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That's definitely a good point. If we are, working towards a goal or fueling our passion, we have to remember that a lot of our support will come from ourselves, like in the beginning, and the people that support us already. So, yes.
And you'd be surprised that the support doesn't come from people that you thought it would come from.
That too.
It may just be a person that you just met and appreciates what you're trying to do, and they make more than the people who've been around you all the time.
Yeah.
So you never know. Just be open to all options. But as we know, you also have to be careful, because not all money is good money. If someone, I'll invest in you, but then they want to control what you say, what you do. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the type of situation you want. So be careful for that.
That's such a good point. And that you're saying that someone could become interested just like at a pop-up shop, or if they see it on social media. And so that could also, make someone want to volunteer with you all, like you were saying, y'all are interested in finding someone for a marketing position. So how would you go through the process of assessing who is on your team?
Now they have. I actually investigating some groups like Fiverr. You've heard of them? Fiverr. I think it is
Oh,
people who have those skills, and I think they only charge like $5 or something an hour. So little things like that. I've been reading some internship things that other museums are doing to see how they're writing theirs up to give some interns opportunity. Maybe some, I'm looking at maybe some high school students. How can we pull them into the process? And I mean, they're more tech savvy,
right.
than we are, or I am. And so how can they, maybe have like an internship with them? Because a lot of the high school kids have to do volunteer service now, don't they? As part of their graduation packages.
Oh, okay.
So I was thinking about maybe contacting some high schools and saying we have some areas that we can maybe use some help that they can use for volunteer service. So that's one thing being a nonprofit you can do.
Okay. And so
Until you're ready to, because we're not necessarily in a position to be paying anybody right now.
Right.
Looking for volunteers. I mean, because you could write up the whole description as if, it is paying, but a lot of companies, even corporate America, a lot of internship jobs are not for pay. They're here to get some experience. So you still got to have your job description written up for what you want to be done. And you can get that online. What's the group called? Roads. And they have a lot of different job descriptions out there. The Rome Group, ROME, the Rome Group. They have a lot of nonprofit organizations, and they have job descriptions. And so you can look on there and kind of get an idea what you are looking for.
Okay. So then
use that as
okay, thank you for all these resources. We got all these gems. Yes, thank you. So what would be like personally your next step? So you reach out to the high school and they're like, okay, here are volunteers. What would be some things you would look for, some strengths that you would look for so that you can confirm that's someone you want on your team?
Writing. You want someone who uses spell check. That the spell check be their friend. Or grammar check. That's important. You'd be surprised how even just writing a short paragraph, 5 lines. You want the person to be able to do a 30. When you say a 30-second interview or 30-second, what's your elevator pitch? Your elevator speech.
Right.
They have to be able to put it into 30 seconds or, write a paragraph about, let's say if I just had a stamp, just Jackie Robinson, what's your research? Do me a 5 lines about Jackie Robinson. Now we know it's a zillion articles out there, a lot of information about him. They need to be able to pull out at least the basics. When he was born, when he died, what awards he received, what team he was on, just some basic things that if they come up with those basic themes, they can do that for every stamp. But they need to be able to do some research, be able to read, as I do, spell check and grammar is your friend. And that
attention to detail.
All areas. Yeah. That'll carry them in all areas. They need to be able to read.
Very true.
And understand what they're reading.
Comprehend. Yep.
And how to comprehend. And then spill back out, as possible. I know I saw this one young lady and she started a business and she's a virtual assistant. I think she does more than this, but she was posting Facebook posts for people. She's marketing that she 10 things for you for $50. I mean, that in itself is a business. And so she obviously feels confident enough to research. She looks at your page, sees the type of things you post, what you're, trying to convey, and then she does the post for you. So a person like that, even though that's her business, I want to see at least 5, see some of her work that she's done for other people before I say, release her out on my page.
Okay,
Just
right. So
you need to
being
have like
prepared.
maybe a little portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, portfolio. Mhm. Okay. um, you said.
You said about future plans. I mean, we're not totally shutting off from having a brick and mortar location. I would love to have a gallery, maybe at a university that has a museum. It's like here at SIU. They have their own museum and they have several display cabinets all over campus. I would
Mhm.
love to maybe eventually access one of those display cabinets or even have a gallery there or on a
Yeah.
university campus. That's what I would think I would like to do, to partner with a university or partner with another museum that has a physical building and then allow us to have a gallery somewhere in there.
Mhm.
I'm not
And
sure if I really want a whole building right now,
yeah,
but a gallery that I have a wing, that I keep updated
yeah.
would be the
And
next
and like you say,
one.
you already are going to be making videos too. So just like how they have the
Mhm.
library and the bookstore, they could have you on the website too, and then people could get a sneak
Right.
peek before they come. That's
Hmm.
nice.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
something like that.
Ooh,
That's the next phase. The next phase.
that sounds
And
great.
following, there's this group called the Jim Crow Museum. So he has a partnership with Ferris University in Michigan. He actually has been collecting probably as long as I have too.
Mhm.
He collects, a lot of stuff that some people are somewhat offended by, but it's still history, like the Uncle Tom or Mammies or
Memories. Okay.
the book, the cookie jars, all that stuff that a lot of people are somewhat offended by. But he started collecting it over 20 some years ago. Started in the basement of the university. They gave him some space. Then in a building, like one room
Yeah.
turned into three rooms that now has turned into a whole wing, to the point where they're doing a capital campaign to raise funding to get a whole new building
Wow.
and space. So you got to start somewhere, and I feel like
Exactly.
we're 3 years, yeah, 3 years, and we want to make it to at least
Yes.
five, because that's how businesses, that they say that new
Mhm.
businesses usually in 5 years, so my goal now is to make it to 5 years and to have the partnerships that might lead to us having, space, gallery space. But meanwhile, we'll keep doing the pop-up exhibits and building out the YouTube page. That's what we're doing right now.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, thank you so much. My last question. Um, I really, as I said in the beginning, it was very inspirational. As I watched the beginning of the the nonprofit, and still, of course, to this day. But um, as I continue to go through my undergraduate degree and listen to more, people talk and speeches, a lot of people will say, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can start today, or you can start right now if you realize what your passion is, if you know what you're meant to do. Um, and so, did you ever have like any doubts related to that, or do you ever talk to your friends and associates about how they can just get over the, what do you call it, that that block, that mind block, and just move past it to be successful?
Well, nowadays, um, 70 is the new 30 or something. We say, people aren't just, waiting to turn 65 to retire and now go do something that they want to do. Because, you have a lot of people who are working past 65, 70. We're not, I'm not 60 yet. I'm almost there. And so I'm starting now doing what I would like to eventually do full time. I have a full time job. I do the museum on the side, but eventually I would like to be able to do the museum stuff full time. And most people nowadays, even if they after they retire from their regular job, they whatever passion, what they enjoy doing while they were working, now they can have more time to devote to that. And, retirement just means you get to move on to the next phase of your life. Or what do you want the next half of your life or while you're here? So I just have always been a person that, do what you love doing. This, you need self-care. And if self-care is reading books, then maybe you can open up a bookstore because you like being
Yes.
around books all the time. In my case, I enjoy doing stamps, stamp collecting and showing my stamps. And so that's relaxing to me. And it's a form of self-care. But I also share with other people, hoping that they can get something out of it and maybe use it as a tool to relax. So just kind of like art therapy. Pretty much that's what it is, because the artist, the post office pays an artist $5,000 to design the stamp. And I was on a call the other day where this guy was so excited because he got a stamp, but he also got the artist's renderings of how he first sketched what he thought the stamp should look like, all the way through to the time when the stamp actually came out. And I was just on a call too with a young lady who did the vote stamp. That's out now, women voting. And she said she wished she had to push harder for the stamp had a woman of color more pronounced, even though there's a woman of color on there. And when she said that, I was like, well, I'd like to see the first rendering then. What did she think, a woman of color really looked like? So maybe it was someone that would have had an afro or had braids, but they went pretty mainstream with the stamp. So just learning that little background about things and finding gems like the Marvin Gaye stamp is out. The post office issued 2 posters. One of those posters, the artist who made up the stamp signed 1,000 copies, and that's it. And so we got one of those, number 595. That's our number. So just looking forward to how eventually that's going to be, worth something,
Yeah.
So we're still doing new things besides just stamp collecting, finding other areas to keep it interesting and exciting, and expanding, being recognized. We were recognized as an organization that is expanding the whole stamp collecting world.
Yeah.
And then also, trying to introduce our people to the fact that stamp collecting can be a wealth building portfolio item, because other, people have been collecting stamps for years and using it as an investment, getting loans and different things against their stamp collection. So we don't really have that mindset. So it's just another way that we can introduce people to possible wealth building. We look at it like that, but it is a wealth building thing. It really is.
That's a great
And
point.
it's enjoyment, besides just enjoyment and artistry and health, self-care. It also is something that you can leave, as a legacy for your family.
Yes. Yes.
Legacies. That's what we're about.
Exactly. Wow. All so many great points. Oh man. Okay. I'll let you go. Actually, we have one last question. Okay, because we're in the midst of it. We are a few days away, so I have to ask you. I've asked almost everyone since August, so I have to ask you, what are your thoughts, that, as much as you would like to share? We don't have to get too deep, or you can get as deep as you would like. But what are your thoughts on the upcoming presidential election in the U.S.?
Definitely, I have already voted.
Okay.
And actually, I early vote a lot of whenever I vote. I do not only just presidential elections, but I also vote in the primaries and early March, April type elections, and not just for the president, for all the other roles and your township person and just your community where you live. It's just as important to vote at that level as it is for the presidential election. And I'm just a person, like, if you haven't voted, don't plan on voting, then we don't really have anything to talk about, because I'm not going to argue with you on something that you don't think is important, that you don't think can make a difference. If it didn't make a difference, we wouldn't have so many people trying to block us getting out to vote. And as we
Sure.
know,
Voter suppression.
you have to, right? I mean, if it wasn't important, if your one vote didn't count, you wouldn't have all of this going on, to the point of even threatening people, trying to make people feel so uncomfortable that they shouldn't even go to vote. And that's kind of scary,
Yeah.
to the point that out, or, just like they had the person in Michigan trying to kidnap, or making arrangements to kidnap, I think, the governor. What kind of stuff is that? If a person will go that far, we have some serious issues. And I think a lot of people, I would suggest, try to go vote as soon as possible. Early voting was my push for people. But if we're past that point now, you at least have to go out. I mean, employers are giving you a couple hours now. Some places are even giving you a whole day, to get out and vote.
Yes,
and
that's true.
There are going to be consequences, I think, either way. But at least we tried. Even if we don't get the outcome that you want, you tried. You did something. And I think some people say, oh, we got to choose the best of two evils, or I guess it's all in your viewpoint of it. But you have to vote. You have to get out and vote. As we know, how many people we keep hearing over and over, people died for you to have the opportunity to vote. People are trying to block you because your vote is important. I know they're fighting now to try to change the Voting Rights Act to John Lewis's name. John Lewis,
I think I did see that.
Yeah, the one person that between him, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Medgar Evers. I mean, when I think about them, the things that they sacrificed, we owe that to them. We owe it to our ancestors to support and embrace what they try to make happen for us.
Yeah, because we wouldn't be here if they didn't do that. We wouldn't be where we are now if they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I was just going to say, and like we said earlier, it's about the legacy too. So it's about the people that are coming after us as well.
Right.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, they have to see us go out and do it. But what I've learned too is to try, and I'm trying to learn this more so, that you can agree to disagree.
Yes.
You may, for the same person, that your kids or family members, you want people to be thinking on their own. You want them to have an opinion, be a part of the process. I may not agree with you, but at least you did your ground and you're part of the process. You're not just sitting back, not doing anything.
Yes, exactly. Because hopefully that's pushing us to educate ourselves about our decision and why we're making the decisions we are, and like you said about, and like you said, it's also about our community. So just knowing if we are empathetic towards those around us that we're cohabitating with.
Now, the one thing too, I know Kamala Harris is a AKA, I think, in the Divine Nine, because I remember Sidney Monroe. Divine Nine has been very supportive and very, this is historical with her being a VP nominee, but there are two other Black women who are also vice presidential. They were candidates. And so I don't think it's historical still to have three Black women who were on the ticket. It just so happened that Kamala, that the Democrats and the Republicans are standing out there. But I think the other ones were independent and green tickets. And I just kind of wanted those women to get some recognition too, that they went that far. That, that's a move to say, hey, I want to be vice president of the United States. But at this point, she's getting most or all the attention because they got, the nomination. But I just don't want those two ladies to fall through the cracks.
Right.
That they, make the move to do that too. It's really historical in a way too.
Yes, Black women everywhere. We just do it.
Yeah,
I have a crew neck, and it says it's handled. It's like in quotations, it says it's handled, and then underneath it says Black women everywhere. So yes, we we're unstoppable. So yes, I'm definitely, like you said, if we've reached that point of being on the ticket, we know what's next. So I'm excited to see it. I have my different. I'm very conflicted about the situation, but I understand, as we just discussed, how I need to be educated and do my part. So
Hmm.
I I feel about it a certain way now, but I know if we reach that point, it will likely be a different situation. So,
Yeah. I mean, I just hope that people accept the outcome without there being a lot of, even though I know in my heart there's going to be some backlash and some people are going to be injured and hurt that are just shouldn't be hurt, that will be
honestly,
hurt. So we're just going to have to hope that people um, can stay strong and recover and move
honestly,
on. I just chose to vote early because I just want to be at home
yes,
on that day and relax and see what's happening. Well, because in some states, we won't even know the final results because some
I
places
think,
can't even start counting the ballots till that day.
yeah, I
But
think
we're
it's
just
about,
going by
uh,
certain what do you call it? Certain studies or certain polls that are out there that we're kind of going by now. So
okay, excuse me. Um,
interesting.
I thought I read that it was going to be like 3 days after, but maybe that's not
The
right.
officially no.
Okay,
Well, that's what they were saying. Some places they wouldn't know the answer
okay,
to the end, but there are other places like if they know that they have certain states, then for
right,
sure they know pretty much they can call it.
right,
And they can call it. Now, one of the things that the NAACP convention put a resolution for was to get rid of the electoral college because even though we all vote and we don't want to leave anything to chance,
yep,
that group ultimately can make the decision to go against what their own state says. So that was a big deal for the convention to try to eliminate that group. So we shall see what
yeah,
happens.
yes, we will see. Thank you